Hi there, I'm Don.
And hi, I'm Cindy. Welcome to Pearls of Liberty, September 22nd, 2012, the day of the National and the Fed rallies. So we were unable to attend our local San Francisco rally, but we hope that lots and lots of people are out there saying, it's not federal and there is no reserve.
We did that a few years ago. That was a fun truth to yell. So, yeah, it's also the first day of fall, or the day after the first day of fall, or something like that. So, and major changes are in the offing. Of course, we've been saying that for a while, but now's the time of testing. That's what's on my heart, is that people are kind of going into disappointment mode. Nothing's changed. Everything looks the same, but we really believe that things are about to change and that it's not the time to give up.
Absolutely. And just the fact that Tea parties that we know of are participating in the Fed rallies today. And this is a message that Ron Paul so effectively was able to get out to the public, that the Federal Reserve is not federal. It's a private institution. And to say that there is no reserve is just a reference to the fact that the coffers are empty as far as anyone can see. So we do pray that the Federal Reserve will come to an end. They had a 99-year agreement in 1913, and it's set to expire this year. We've heard that Congress has extended it indefinitely, but Congress can also revoke it at any time.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What about that rumor that there are no more bills being printed and haven't been for a couple of years? Is that true or not?
You know better than I.
No, you're the one that told me.
Well, somebody in a chat that I happened to read stated that no new bills have been printed since 2010, and if you look at dollar bills, you will see that that is the case. People said that there will be no more printing of bills, but then other people have said, no, that's an error, and they definitely are still actually printing paper money.
And maybe those people were disinfo agents or not. We don't know.
That's
or
always
maybe
the
they're
question.
saving the new dollar bills for when the banks loan out the money that the QE Infinity is just waiting, just itching to give to people. It's working so well, we just had to do more of it, and that's when we're all going to get those nice new dollar bills.
We shall see. There are rumors of global settlement packages going out, and we don't. Well, you know, as Don just stated, the whole issue of disinfo agents, what's true, what paths are we being misled down? It's very, very difficult to tell. It's very, very important to keep your antenna up all the way and follow your gut. One thing that people are thinking about and talking about this week is the drug trafficking that's been going on under the blessings of the U.S. government across the Mexican border. And there's currently a trial going on. The gentleman who's on trial is stating that he was a part of the drug cartel that had basically carte blanche to operate kind of, if not under the blessing, at least under the radar of the U.S. government. And Jon Rappoport wrote a very insightful blog about that this week, and we'll have the link in our comments and in our notes.
Read that guy, he's great. He's prolific and always insightful.
And just a little footnote here, obviously dovetails with Fast and Furious. It is a part of Fast and Furious because many of the weapons that crossed the border in Fast and Furious were given to drug cartels. Our friend Ian Garland, we may have mentioned several weeks ago that he was finally sentenced, and he's no longer in a New Mexico holding tank. They don't want you to call it a jail. I forget the term, but anyway.
Prison?
No, he was in, not in a prison. Basically, it's a jail. And he
Isn't it one of those new factories where they get the cheap labor?
Well, they're all factories where they get cheap labor. And Ian has been sentenced now, so he is in an actual prison camp in South Dakota. He's in minimum security prison, and if you visit fastandfuriousjusticenow.com, I think it's .com, it might be .org, but we'll have the link. You can read a recent email that Ian wrote detailing his entire experience up till now.
Can we read about what products he's making in his new job? In the wonderful not prison that he's in?
This letter does not detail that. He's desperately still hoping to catch the attention of, some influential person in government, some influential journalist who will be able to kind of extend a hand.
And we've got this blog out there hoping that somebody will recognize that we're tracking with this, and it could be picked up and go with somebody that's doing bigger and better things than we are. That's our hope anyway.
Absolutely. So visit the blog, and if you can find it in your heart to send Ian an email or a card or a letter.
So meanwhile, Obama is saying that it's all George Bush's fault, right? I think that's the latest thing that I saw, and that Fast and Furious was not his thing. But of course, we know that even though there was a continuation, Obama accelerated into brand new territory, and this guy is Mr. Doublespeak himself. So even though there is some truth always embedded in a lie, that doesn't mean that there's not a lie there being told by ultimately the master of lies. And unfortunately, that's the voice of our government from both parties all too often.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And we do know that George Bush, we don't deny that he participated in Fast and Furious and may have been the one to first ask for it to be done, but Kathy O'Brien,
something different then, that's all. Yeah.
Well, Kathy O'Brien, in her book about being a mind control slave, MK Ultra, stated that in the 80s she was used by aspects of the government as a drug mule.
Yeah, it's the same story, just different players, different scenery.
Yeah, so it's definitely nothing new.
The government has been stolen. It's not our government anymore, people. If you're still under the illusion that this is our government, you're mistaken. It's been taken over, as Alex Jones so often says, by offshore banks and this evil cartel, whatever you want to call them. It started with, well, it started long ago, but most recently with the Federal Reserve, that in 1913. You can go back and you can read all the people that warned about this. Charles Lindbergh, the senior, the father of the famous pilot, all kinds of famous people, congressional figures, etc., etc. Now it's finally come due. The time is up. This is the end, and this thing is wrapping to a close. And far too many people are still asleep and just trying to choose between the lesser of two evils. So knock it off.
Okay, we will. There has been a group, and we've talked about them before, who have tried to reclaim our country, the Republic for the United States of America, or RUSA. And Tim Turner, the president of that organization, was indicted this week. If he's convicted, he stands to serve 164 years in prison and something like fines of $2.3 million. And we haven't been in the Republic for a few months, as you know, if you've watched our videos. But we have no reason to believe that Tim Turner is anything but a good man with good intentions, although his advisors were screwed up. That's a line from Raising Arizona.
Yeah, he's probably listening to some wrong people, and Cindy has an amazing scenario there was A and B sitting right next to each other, and she did the brilliant thing of putting A and B together, so I'll let her explain that. But we do believe in the principles that the Republic stood for and was trying to, on its face, promote. We just found that there was so much, I don't know how to label it, so much counterproductive behavior in the whole organization, and such a lack of true awareness of what liberty is, and just people with big government ideas and all kinds of things got in there, and then that it just seemed to be really fraught with problems. But Cindy noticed something that had to do with the vice president of RUSA. So why don't you explain that?
I happened to catch just a little blurb on a Liberty radio program that I was listening to, that Tim Turner had asked for the resignation of CW, who was serving as the vice president for RUSA. And I was kind of, did I hear that correctly? Because I was wondering if there was any connection between CW being asked by Tim Turner to resign and Tim Turner being indicted, because what I thought that I heard was that Tim Turner asked for CW's resignation because he suspected him of being an agent, a spy, in other words. It's all so dramatic. So as I looked it up on the internet, I found something on the NASARA website that stated that, take this as rumor, but CW resigned from being the VP of RUSA, and that the date on that was the 17th of September. And when I went online to look at Tim Turner's indictment, the Justice Department dated the indictment September 18th. So this resignation, allegedly, if the rumors are true, occurred on the 17th, and Tim Turner was indicted on the 18th. So that makes one wonder.
Yeah, and I just happened to realize that 17th is Constitution Day. So what does that mean in the ultimate symbology of things? I'm not sure, but I think I have a guess that what everybody in RUSA believed, and what we believed while we were involved, was that this group was going to bring us back to the foundation of the Constitution. And then, lo and behold, later we learned that the Constitution itself was a false foundation of liberty, and we weren't the first people to discover that. There's been patriot and liberty people throughout the history of this country that have known that the Constitution was really a corporate document from the beginning. And the script in RUSA was that the corporation just took over after the Civil War. But we found out that no, that's not the case. So it's very interesting that this, whatever you want to call it, axe to the root, coup, whatever, we don't know that there was a coup because we don't know anybody else that's involved. Whatever's happening in RUSA, it happened at a very interesting time, Constitution Day and the day following. So take that for what it's worth. We're not even sure. We just want to pass that information on to you.
You may ask, because we haven't told you yet, what exactly was Tim Turner indicted for? And the answer to that is basically what seems to me, as I read, and I didn't read in any depth, I kind of skimmed the documents, looks to me like they're all First Amendment issues. It basically looks to me like things that he taught in classes, and I think the charge might be something like conspiracy to commit fraud and passing for fake documents off as monetary instruments. But he was teaching people how to do these things. And is teaching not covered by First Amendment rights?
Well, this is an old controversy, and it goes back to as early in this country as the Alien and Sedition Acts under John Adams, in which you couldn't say anything negative about the administration, and it's hard to imagine that a founding father as great as John Adams would take such a position. But of course, that's a big part of the feud between Jefferson and Adams, is that Adams was acting like a tyrant. Yeah, he was. And there have long been people in the government of the United States that treated anything that didn't accept the absolute authority of the federal government as being treasonous. So yeah, people like Tim Turner have been fighting for a true government of the people, by the people, for the people, to use Abraham Lincoln's stolen phrase. That controversy has always been around, and I, for one, will always side with those who have the right to question authority, question the legitimacy of the federal government. Thomas Jefferson, my huge hero, said, "You've got to have a revolution every 20 years or so, and we want to always keep this spirit of resistance alive. Yeah, it's going to be wrong and flawed sometimes, but it's very, very important, and we always want to side with liberty, even when the arguments are flawed, because throughout history, it's quite clear that governments are the problem, not the solution. And obviously that's the state of things today, and therefore we say, God bless you, Tim Turner, and the Lord be with you."
Exercise your own discernment in finding leaders to follow, if you must follow a leader. If you get that little nagging feeling somewhere deep inside that, well, what he said or how he behaved in this instance doesn't line up with what he's written, or we tend to pass it off. Oh, that's just me. I'm imagining it. Maybe the first time you might be imagining it. The second time is questionable. If there's a third time that something just doesn't sit right with you, my goodness, get up and walk away.
Yeah.
We're so easily snared, and people often, you've probably heard, if something is 95% true and 5% false, and you swallow it, there's something in there that isn't right, that's going to become a part of your ideology or world vision or whatever. And this has really happened, I think, in this election cycle with a lot of liberty people. Started out, really insisting, no, I won't vote for anybody but Ron Paul. And then now, as the time grows more near, and we're not criticizing anybody, but as the time grows more near to the actual election, this left-right thing is happening, and a lot of liberty, maybe not a lot, but there are liberty people who are kind of moving toward their old haunts and starting to kind of gently promote their guy, whichever, left or right.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem, and I think that will ruin it for us if we don't stand on principle. We've got to stand on principle. Again, I'm going to quote Jefferson, who said, in matters of style, go with the flow, but in matters of principle, stand like a rock, stand on the rock, whatever it is. I'm paraphrasing, but that's a well-known quote. And if you don't think that there's principle involved here, I don't know what to tell you. There's huge principles involved. Both of the candidates running are absolute control freak state people that are promoting things that are contrary to liberty, contrary to what America is supposed to be all about. And if you can talk yourself into supporting one or the other because the other one is so bad, all I have to say is you're swimming down this river that you think is insignificant, but your principles are flowing away with you. You've got to stand on principle, and you're metaphorically or psychically or somehow you're aligning yourself with the forces of evil. The lesser of two evils is still evil. Don't do it. That's all I can say. We need people with strong and pure consciences to stand in the days ahead. So I would say vote for somebody other than one of these two. Right and wrong, Paul, if you can. Abstain. Vote for Gary Johnson. Any of the above. And that's my 2 cents on the matter. People that make arguments about federal judge appointments can be disproven by the facts of some recent rulings. It's not always the, quote, conservative that makes the right ruling. So don't fall for that argument. Ultimately, the most valuable thing is your conscience, and don't sell that conscience to the highest bidder. He's not buying you for money. He's buying you for Team A over Team B, and it's foolishness.
We're hoping to see breakthrough, as we mentioned earlier, and prophetic people that we know and mystics that we read are all talking about breakthrough. And we hope that it's true. We hope that it comes. But whatever, we still need to do our part. We need to express godly principles in our lives and behave as if nobody's going to come and rescue us, because it's possible that nobody will, and we're on our own. We need to do our own rescuing of ourselves and our nation and our world. And I've been reading a book. I really don't want to get deeply into it because it's a very deep book. It's called Heal Thyself. If you feel like you're a healer, if healing is something that you think about a lot, even if throwing off oppression is something that you think about a lot, you might really enjoy this book. But one thing that we both kind of wanted to mention about it is the idea in the book that as an individual, disease is caused by some kind of emotional stress or trauma, and the way the brain processes it. And the disease aspect often manifests when the conflict has been resolved, and you often see disease at the beginning of the healing process. And that is as an individual, and we were talking about it, and Don projected that onto our nation, and the fact that we may come to a crisis pretty soon, and healing will begin. But what will that look like?
Well, it's not going to be pretty, and the problem is that we've got to face it. And this is what Alex Jones says so often: we've got a really, really bad case of this tyranny, this historical problem that nations get. We've got an extremely bad case of it, and you can't put a Band-Aid on it and expect to get better. We've got to go through the healing process, and this is the thing that Cindy gleaned from the book, and I applied, is that, yeah, we've got a healing process to go through. We can't fall for the false solutions that would be paralleled in the body by the medicines that mask the symptoms and make you think you're better, but it just pops up someplace else and your body begins to fall apart. Well, this body, this country is falling apart, and we can't go for these Band-Aid solutions of the two-party system that are bought and paid for by the banks that have taken our nation over and have been running this scam for so long. Killed presidents historically that try to take a stand against it. So what hope, and not only presidents, but congressmen and others that try to warn against the system. So we've we've got to face it and deal with what we've got. And that means not buying into the lies that they're trying to sell you. That means doing your own research. That means finding groups of like-minded people who can support one another in the turmoil that's going to come. It's ultimately the truth will win, but we've got to go through this time of testing that I was talking about in the beginning by standing strong on principle, and only then will we be able to rebuild on the true foundation. And yes, ultimately the foundation is Christ, but it's easy to say that and not understand that that means that you've got to give up this illusion that government is your friend, because we're well past the point where it's obvious that that's not true. So just prepare, and it's going to be difficult, but we're going to make it through as long as we don't buy into the lies.
So again, listen to your gut, your heart, whatever you feel is the core of yourself.
See the world the way that really is, and then see yourself in it and walk your own walk.